Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, salamu alaikum, peace be upon all of you. So, in my last video, which I recorded yesterday, as far as when I'm recording this, and I just listed it, just made it public so people can see it. In that video, I'm responding to a comment on a previous short that I had that is a teaching clip, and on my channel, I have several clips of me teaching live in my public school classroom, primarily teaching 11th grade students, so kids age 16, 17, in a school in South Minneapolis. And it's a public school, but the class is almost all Muslim kids. And, in trying to fix the issues and make progress with our youth, because we have so much anxiety in the Muslim community about the youth, and instead of just having anxiety about it, I say let's try to problem solve with it. And I talked 2 videos ago, a video that got a fair amount of views now for my channel, about how our insecurity with teaching non-Muslims about Islam and about our religious needs with as Muslims in Western society is a big contributor to it. And my educator training project, Engaging Muslim Students in Public Schools, the book and training that have goals along with it. Go to refer educators to abrahameducation.com, where they can learn more about that, is solving that issue. And you can see the previous video about Muslim insecurity where I talk about that if you're new to the channel. But in this video, what I'm getting at is the other end of the issue is the lack of skill we have with kids in the Muslim community, especially amongst males, but both ways. And in that video, I'm responding to a comment where someone asked on the teaching clip video what happened. Now, what happened in that teaching clip video is something very, very small. I was talking, reading from a book actually, and I noticed a student turn their head to talk to another student. Now, that doesn't seem someone who does not have experience teaching in a classroom and experience mastering how to teach in a classroom. That might not register to them as something happening, but it is. And it gets to a main skill that you need in getting kids to listen to you, of pausing, and also an awareness of how your own actions set the actual expectations for what kids can do in front of you. I have other videos on this that I'll talk about later. But I went on to talk about how these types of skills, and this skill specifically of pausing when kids turn to talk to someone next to you, is something that we do not have in the Masjid, and that hurts our ability to teach the kids and to build up their religious character. Now, I referred to this hadith, not hadith, but this saying of, of a companion of the Prophet, alayhi salatu wassalam. Zoom on this here. It was narrated that Jundum bin Abdullah said, "We were with the Prophet, alayhi salatu wassalam, and we were strong youths. So we learned faith before we learned Qur'an. Then we learned Qur'an and our faith increased thereby." So we'll highlight that part. We learned faith before we learned Qur'an. Then we learned Qur'an and our faith increased thereby. Now, I think a lot of people know this hadith, saying of the companion who was young when he was with the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. And, of course, it brings forth the question, if that is how you're supposed to learn in Islam, if you're supposed to learn the faith, you're supposed to learn Tawheed, you're supposed to learn the 5 pillars, you're supposed to learn the tenets of Iman, the hadith of Jibril, and so forth, before learning the Quran and you're supposed to have your faith cultivated like that, why is it that Muslim kids are always memorizing the Quran first in the weekend schools in the Masjid? And why do they spend so much time just memorizing the Quran and not enough time actually learning the faith. Now, firstly, I know some people will say it's because of culturally, whatever what your culture is. Most Muslim cultures, they developed their culture developed this as a habit. I understand that, where memorizing the Quran became overemphasized, and so part of it is carrying over the practice from the home culture into here, even if it doesn't correlate with what Jundub bin Abdullah, may Allah be pleased with him, is saying here. I understand that, but putting that aside, even now, people have recognized that this is a problem. The issues with the character of Muslim youth is a pervasive problem in the West, which is not to say that we don't have a bunch of great kids. We do, but the negative sticks out more than the positive always to people. And we are rightly ashamed of it when our youth don't meet our standards. And that's a good thing about our community, that we feel bad about that. And even if you look in my book, when I talk about chapter 2 and the experiences of Muslim kids in public schools, not just in America, but in other Western countries, this is somewhat recognized across the board, amongst non-Muslim teachers of Muslim kids too, especially amongst males. Anyway, it's a little bit of a different discussion. But people recognize, and I've had enough discussion with brothers and students of knowledge and leaders of Masjid that they know the kids need to have the faith cultivated, and that they're spending too much time memorizing the Quran. And I even know of Masjid that are trying to change that. So they're offering more classes that are based on moral lessons, or they're going through the Islamic studies book by Bilal Phillips or something else like that instead. I know of these efforts happening, but they're not successful. And a lot of the time, people they revert away from those things and still go to just having the kids work on memorization. Why is that? Why in the Masjid do the kids learn memorizing the Quran before learning the faith? Now, a real reason that we're not gaining a grasp of, or we're not acknowledging, is because it's a behavior management issue with the kids. Why? Now, because the process of learning the Quran is a beautiful process. Obviously, it's a very old, established process. You have quality instructional materials for it that make the process very workable. It's honestly very beautiful. Something that the process of memorizing does is it starts very simple, it builds up incrementally, and it keeps the kids busy when they're doing it. And this is the main reason why the weekend schools fall back on it so much. Because what's lacking in the weekend schools is behavior management skills, and the ability to get kids to listen when you talk. Because if you want to teach kids moral lessons and you want to teach something abstract like the faith, you have to get them to listen. You do have to lecture them. Yes, there's a way that you can have them reciprocate the information, and you can check for understanding and all that type of stuff. That's all part of quality teaching as well. But you have to have them intake information at the end of the day. And just getting in front of them and talking is a skill in and of itself when you're talking to young people. And we don't have people doing that. I'm not trying to fault anyone or say they're bad or anything, but we don't have people doing that who have those actual skills of getting the kids to listen. And just this issue of pausing when kids turn to their neighbors, the experience that the muallim has in the madrasa or in the duksi or in the mahad. They get up, they start talking about Tawheed, or they start talking about the faith, or they start taking them through a book that's not the Quran that you have to read instead of just recite. And, again, the number one issue you deal with is kids talking to their neighbors. And someone who's not an experienced teacher, who hasn't mastered this, when you start teaching a group of kids, a kid will turn and talk to another kid within 30, probably 15 seconds of when you start talking. So it's something you have to deal with right away. And if you don't know how to deal with it, you see that happen when you're talking. In the back of your mind, the teacher will tell themselves, well, okay, they're doing that, but inshallah, they're just going to stop for a minute and it'll die down. But it is not, it is not going to stop, because those kids are, they're starting a conversation with one another is what they're doing. And the conversation is just going to go back and forth. And while you have something that is more beneficial, deeper, and more profound and important to their lives to teach them, their minds don't quite get that yet. And their minds are going to be more easier drawn to the funny thing or whatever that they're talking about amongst themselves. So they're automatically going to be more interested in whatever conversation they're starting with each other. So you can't even let the conversation start. And what happens is, one pair of kids will start talking quietly, and then, kids actually have better peripheral vision than adults do. And it's very easy for another kid to see that they're doing it. So he'll do it to the person sitting next to him. And all of a sudden you have two conversations starting. And once those once those conversations start, and another big mistake that the teacher will make when this starts happening, they'll start speaking louder. They'll start teaching louder to talk over the whispering that's happening. That's a huge mistake, because when you do that, then the kids start talking louder, and the whole volume of the room starts raising. And it gets to a point where the teacher recognizes that, no one can listen like this. So then now I gotta stop it. And, that's when you get tense and you get angry and you tell them to listen and askut and all this type of stuff, So, and then you've started a negative downward spiral with your relationship with the kids, and you've made the experience of being in the masjid and learning about Islam negative for the kids. And honestly, like kids go through this so much that it's actually pretty amazing. It's a credit just to Islam itself and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that that they don't feel more negative about the religion, actually, with the pervasiveness of which kids are having these experiences in the masjid. So these soft skills of knowing how to actually teach, they're just really needed in the community for the reason I'm talking about. Because the ignorance that kids have, kids who've gone through, they've been to weekend schools their whole life, sometimes up through age 16, and they don't know the most basic things about the faith sometimes. And they know how to recite Qur'an, and they don't know the meaning of it, but they've learned how to recite it. It's a problem. And developing these skills as a community, and for the people teaching in the masjid, especially, is very, very important. And I'm not trying to put anyone down. I'm really not, because the brothers are making tremendous effort. Just the people who show up to do that. May Allah reward them for that. It's huge, and it's not easy. But just we got to get control of these skills. That's all. So anyway, if you're new to my channel, I have on the playlists. Let's see. If you go to playlists on my channel, I have several things here. I have one playlist, Advice Talks for Parents and Youth. Then I also have teaching clips videos. These are videos of me teaching live. And then I have teaching clip breakdowns, which are videos where I break down those clips of me teaching. Now, in the Advice to Parents and Youth playlist, in this one, when I first got on social media in June of 2021, my first followers were some of my students. So I started off with advice talks to them. But then as I was on Gabriel Romani's channel and Sajid's, I started getting a lot more Muslim parents following me. So then I switched to talking about these things. And in this playlist, show it here. Inshallah, you can see it. Yep, on the bottom right here. If you go through the videos, I talk about, a lot of things about teenage psychology, how they make decisions, different things. But some of the, which are good things to know, because you have to understand, you need to understand how kids think. You need to understand how kids think. And But I have some videos on on this stuff. I'm pausing, setting kids up for success. I think I have a video called one of the most powerful things you can do with kids that talks about this pausing. I'll make sure it gets in there if it's not in that playlist. Another one on what to do when kids talk back, this type of stuff. And right there, what to do when kids talk back. And again, I'm going to have a course where I hash this stuff out a little more, and it's a little more organized instructionally. But begin watching those, because a lot of these teaching skills, they come down to nonverbal things. Okay, your facial expression, your body language, and your tone of voice, and this pausing, and the principle of not talking over kids, and and how you got to get a feel for how that works, and how to not snap back at them, because that's what's intuitive to do in these situations. So if you watch those talks and then watch then in the teaching clips, you'll see videos where I'm teaching and I label what when I use the nonverbals, like I label it in the video. Okay, and so you can see it play out in real time, and then in the teaching clip breakdowns, though on those videos, I give commentary about the teaching clips, and explain how it goes out in real time. Because authentic interactions with kids are hard to get. They're a little hard to get on video and show. And in the videos, my students aren't in it. I can't put them in the videos, really. That wouldn't be right, and they wouldn't like that, at least in that context, because they're usually kind of doing something I don't like in the videos. But you see me and you can hear them, So it's an opportunity to start getting a handle on this stuff. And again, if you want to talk to me sometime, you know what I meant to do. I actually have a calendar link here too, where you can book time with me. I'll put this in the description box as well. But if you go to make it a banner here, hold on, give me a sec. Sorry, still getting used to StreamYard, but it's a very nice instructional tool, actually. If you go to this link, calendly.com/Abraham Education /30min, you can book a session with me for free to talk about kids and whatever you like, okay, or whatever your issue is relating to kids or relating to parenting, relating to the public schools, as you like. Please also you can also email me at info@abrahameducation.com. info@abrahameducation.com. You can go to abrahameducation.com and refer educators to my training for public school teachers engaging Muslim students in public schools. It will explain to them the history of Muslims in America, why, according to educational research, they need to understand our kids as Muslims, and it's the best thing for them. They'll get an in-depth understanding of Islam and how to properly accommodate religious practice in the school. It goes far beyond pamphlet type information, which doesn't do an adequate job. And a large part of it too, chapter 5 of the book and part 5 of the training, talks about learning in the Masjid. And that's something that public school educators need to know about, because something you don't realize is we're cultivating certain learning habits in the kids when they're doing all this learning on the weekends. And what their teachers do with them in public school, it can either build on those habits or it can clash against it. And it mostly clashes against it because they don't know what they're learning. And especially the process of learning the Qur'an. But even though a lot of you feel insecure about what goes on in the Masjid and this type of thing, and feel like we're not being effective enough, you might feel that way. But there's actually a lot of principles and strategies and themes within Islamic learning that are actually very, very good instructional processes that is actually good insight for educators to give. So therefore, when educators take this, they gain an appreciation for Islam and for the practices of Muslims, and they derive some real world benefit for it in their lives, in their profession. And the end has a whole series of books, K through 12, that can be used in a public school curriculum to bring an authentic Muslim identity into the curriculum and touch on things that can draw upon our Muslim kids' background knowledge to better engage them and give them a chance to bring their Muslim self out in the classroom. And it talks about how to do that. It's thorough. So please refer it to educators, especially during this time when Ramadan is coming up, because during this time, it's more present in the teacher's minds that the kids are Muslim, and the kids even start acting more Muslim when Ramadan comes and this type of thing. So the curiosity is piqued. Just look up your local public school, even if you are not directly involved in a public school. As a parent or educator, you're still a community member of that school, and you still have something to offer, and they're still responsible to you. Okay, jazakumullahu khairan, barakallahu fikum, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.